All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes and Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. He survived Craig Berube barking today down at practice. That's what I heard. He was in quite the mood this morning. Is that accurate? How would you assess the head coach of the Maple Leafs running practice today?
He's kind of like that every practice. Like, you can hear him. Like, Keith for 5 years couldn't really hear what he was saying. Once in a while when he was like really pissed off, you could hear. You can hear it like every day. So today, like, there was a moment in practice where he's like, "You gotta move your feet," and he's like, and he kind of repeats it and repeats it and repeats it, and that's like daily. And that's one of the changes, like with practice from him versus Keith, is like that's one change. Practice today was like 31 minutes. That's different. Like,
Keith used to run a longer,
very long practice,
more detailed practice, probably doing different things in different areas of the ice.
Yes.
Where Berube is like, get out, move your feet.
He wants like
hard.
Quick up-tempo practices, really hard, but not long. But like, you hear him. Like, you're not getting through a practice. Like, if you're not feeling it, you will stand out and he will get on you.
I like that.
Yeah.
He's got his own style. I mean, Sheldon's got his own style. It's working pretty well for Sheldon Keefe.
Sure.
I'd say down in Jersey, and I'm sure he is going to adjust as he continues with his career, and Berube will likely adjust. But how have you dealt with the scrums with Berube? Because that's your wheelhouse, right? Like, you're in there every single day. And not that you're poking and prodding or anything, but there are days you have questions. I'm sure there are days where you don't.
Today. Yeah, today I had a question.
Oh, yeah? What were you
I was
asking
wondering about
today?
Matthews.
Well, obviously, that's
whether he's going to play this week.
Someone's got to ask that. Yeah. I found his answer very confusing.
Yes, it was.
He was like, I don't know if we have the audio of Berube on Matthews. You were there. You could tell everybody what he said.
So my question was, are you expecting him to play this weekend? And he said he doesn't know at this point. From what he knows right now, he couldn't really answer that.
Right, and it was like very tough for him to give an answer.
Because of what he knows today?
But what does he know?
I don't know.
That's the thing. Like, what does he know that we don't know about Auston Matthews? But he wasn't on the ice today. He wasn't practicing today. Not at all surprising. They were off yesterday.
Well, I guess that's not – I wouldn't say that's at all surprising. They didn't have anything yesterday. He could have theoretically, like –
I just didn't think it was going to be a quick turnaround.
It shouldn't be. Like, I don't think it should be forced.
Without knowing what it is, though.
Yeah, well.
That's the thing. Like, McDavid returned last night. And
they say it was going to be 2 to 3 weeks with him?
They did at that point, and then all of a sudden he returned, and he looked good to me. Like, he was flying last night. And it was a lower body injury, and apples and oranges, every player's got something different. I'm not surprised that Matthews wasn't there today, because if you're going to miss a game and then get back on the ice and start practicing, that, to me, would have suggested he maybe could have played the other night. And maybe if it's a playoff game,
played 2 days earlier, right? Like,
yeah.
To me, like, I kind of think that they should nip whatever this is it's the bud, right? Not the butt.
Yes.
I got that wrong in the story one time.
Did you write butt?
Yeah.
And the editor didn't pick that up?
I never heard that saying. I think Randy Carlyle said it, and I was just like, anyway.
You'd never heard of that growing up?
I didn't know it was bud. Like a leaf, I think. Is what it is? Like,
I don't actually have no idea what it is either. I just know what it sounds like. I know the word and what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
But
bud.
Yes. Okay.
But anyway, I think that they should, because I was thinking back like the last few days to that 2 seasons ago where he was basically hurt or playing hurt the entire season, and he just was never right, and you could see it. And like, he had, for any other player, good numbers. He had 40 goals, 85 points. But the year before, he had 60 and 106, I think. So you could see that something wasn't different. And like, I wonder if you kind of give this some time and just say, you know what, we need him healthy and at his best 3 months.
I think that's ideal, but
you know
I mean, who's to say 4 or 5 days of rest will even do that?
Well, that's the thing.
Or missing 3 or 4 games.
That's the thing. And they've chosen not to say what the injury is, so we can only speculate.
Which is always the case with him. Like in the playoffs, it was, we're not telling you anything.
Yeah,
and that was understood because it's the playoffs. Now it's November in the regular season.
It's so silly.
It's very typical. The NHL, the Leafs are not alone in this. It's upper body, lower body or whatever. And I guess the general public knowing exactly what it is not going to change anybody's lives.
No, but
I
it's just
understand
stupid.
that. But it's also not going to change anything if you reveal what the problem is.
NFL says what every injury is.
Yeah.
And somehow they manage.
And like McDavid, the best player in the world, everyone knew it was an ankle issue.
Yes.
Like that's I don't need to see the MRI. No one's
Well,
expecting
and
that.
remember in the playoffs last year with Nylander, it became like a whole firestorm because they just didn't say what it was.
Right.
Instead of just saying, this is what we think it might be. Here's how we're trying to handle it. And people will be like, okay, that makes sense.
And in the playoffs, it's more extreme, this, cloak of secrecy
It's still stupid.
and all that. I agree.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's as necessary. I think there can be something with, like, if you have a lingering, like, finger issue, wrist issue or something, and you're concerned that people are going to slash at you or whatever, like, that might be something. But I feel like the opposition's probably going to know that anyway. But it's November.
Yeah.
It's November. What are we holding back?
I know.
In terms of information?
And just say, you know what? He's dealing with X. We want to make sure he's healthy for the rest of the season. We're going to take this really slow, but
not going to do it.
They're
not going to do it. I mean, they're not going to wake up tomorrow and say, actually, now that we think about it retroactively,
but you're not
here's
right,
what's going on.
Totally. In years past, they did sometimes say, like, I have all his injuries tracked.
Yeah.
And it's only like the last
Does that
couple
feel
years where
creepy?
it's just like,
creep?
Yeah,
you're creep. You're
it's my job to know what's going on.
Speaking of creep, Noodles shows up out of nowhere and just starts talking.
Well, how about,
That's creepy.
guys, how about, like, JP goes, you're on camera. I'm like, you might want to let me know. I've been like, who knows if I'm picking my toenails or something.
Having a burger?
Yeah, having a burger. Sorry, guys, it's nip in the butt. Is it not?
Nip
no,
in the
see?
bud.
See?
Bud, no.
Yes,
yeah,
it's
see,
bud.
Noodles, I got that wrong in a story once because I told Hayes, Carlisle said it once, and I always thought it was butt. I didn't think anything about the saying. No, it's wrong.
It's not butt. It's not the same. Like Noodle, like Jonas, you have looked this up personally
Yeah,
because
I
you
was
know you had a
corrected.
mistake.
Okay.
Yes.
No, but who corrected you? Like
I think
some,
an editor.
like some
They're like,
English
buddy.
major or something?
No, they're
it's
like, buddy,
it's a
the
slang
bud.
saying.
But you can't start altering like long-standing sayings.
I know.
You can't.
He had another one, kitty bar the door or something that I'd never heard.
I've heard that too.
barn
I still don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Kitty
I
by
don't
the
really
barn.
know either.
Kitty by the barn door.
Yeah.
Like they open the barn door and it flies in. Yeah. But that's like, see, these are like farm and Western terms and that. Nip in the butt. It's
No.
absolutely. What is bud? Bud of
Google
what?
it. It's
flower?
it's like a flower plant.
That's what it sounds like. I mean, honestly, I have no idea what's going on. I really don't. But
and honestly, and getting back to, I apologize again for creeping, but for me, it's finding out. Exactly. Like if he's got back spasms, if he's got a bad back, so what? Like, let it die down and away you go. Like, who cares,
Yeah. But they're not going to do it. Jonas, you should show up, though, and say, I have a list of every single injury this guy's had for 8 years. Do you think you could challenge Matthews on an injury he had in the fall of 17?
Well, no, some of them they've revealed, and some that injury 2 years ago, which I mentioned before. You remember that season? Like he just never looked.
Yeah, I think that was his contract year. Like, wasn't that after he scored 60?
Yes,
He went like 60, 40 something.
Yes,
and then 69. And
yeah,
got the deal
and
in
so
between.
what happened is that spring, I asked to talk to him, and I wanted to ask him about his shooting because I noticed like his shot looked better than it had all year, and he said, "Yes, I was dealing with a hand issue early in the year, blah blah blah, and that's better." And I was like, "Oh, that's what it was." And
so eventually he gave you that answer.
Yeah, and I don't. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, Leafs not in action tonight. We do have a great Thursday nighter, though.
Yeah.
A great game tonight. Battle of the AFC North. Luke will be in here in just over an hour because the Ravens, I think they're going to the playoffs even if they lose tonight. It feels like the Bengals have got to get one tonight. Like, this is one where you start the way you started. They were awful early in the season. They lost to New England week 1. They lost to Washington, I want to say, week 3. At home, and obviously the Commanders have turned into a really good team, but they're 4-5. They battled their way back in, but you got to go to Baltimore. Short week. They're a big dog tonight. I think it's 5.5 or 6 point spread. But this is one where if like the Bengals can get this one, feels like they announced something tonight.
They can maybe still win the division if they get this one. You look at it; they play Pittsburgh twice, and Pittsburgh is leading the division right now. Like if Baltimore loses tonight, I think they'd be 6-4.
Yes.
And since he would be 5-5,
yeah, you're right behind them.
You're right there.
Which is pretty astonishing considering how ugly it's been at times. They played great at Kansas City, I want to say week 2. Played really, really
Got
well.
unlucky.
Lost the game. Exactly. The Chiefs found a way to do it. But anyway, I mean, we'll see what comes of it tonight. Luke coming up. All right, we've got a big hour. Mike Rupp will join us. Mike Rupp will join us to tee up some of the games in the NHL tonight. Look back on some of the games last night, including Alex Ovechkin scoring again. And Vegas, I thought it was a great game in Edmonton last night, but Vegas, they just decided we're leaving with 2 points and you get nothing. And that was crushing for the Oilers last night. So we'll get to that and more still to come this hour. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. A bunch of games in the NHL tonight. Thursday nighter in the NFL, Week 10 in the NFL, which is pretty wild. We're already into Week 10, and we've got a battle of the AFC North. And you're calling it, Jonas, that if the Ravens lose tonight, that means the Bengals would have to win, and the Bengals could win the division.
Just because I looked at the schedule and they play Pitt twice, and I don't is Pitt blowing you over right now?
No.
Even after the quarterback change, it's
They've been pretty impressive.
They've been great for what they are.
They've been very good.
But they're 6-2. If you take both those games against Pitt and you beat Baltimore, you're right there.
Yeah, Joe Burrow's numbers have been really good.
He's putting up huge. Didn't he have 5 touchdowns last?
Yeah, he did last week.
Yeah,
it's their defense is so bad. That's the issue. Cincy's defense is so bad. Yeah. But if that can improve, and it will not be easy to do so tonight because that Ravens offense is all world right now. Luke will join us into the 5 p.m. hour. We've got Mark Mathot coming up today. I've got a list. I have 2 lists for you guys. I might put them both out there. You guys can tell me if you just want one of them. I'll tell you about that closer to the 6 p.m. hour. But Mike Rupp will join us here in a few moments, I believe. I don't know when Rupper's coming up.
I'm sorry, Brian, but I need both lists today.
Okay.
I think it's the right thing to do. You and your list, you get going, and you get a lot of. Did you get blowback personally? Do people write you or no?
In terms of who's on the list reaching out, is that what you're suggesting? No, I've never had professional athletes reach out to me. If that's what you're suggesting, that would be great, but I have not had that. But the teams, if they're on the wrong side of it, I haven't heard from them. But I'm sure anything could happen. We'll see what comes of it this afternoon.
I wonder if Rupper's ever gone to a reporter and said, "Hey, smarten up! You wrote something about me last week, and I'm going to stuff you in a garbage can if you ever do it again."
Threatening.
You get suspended for that, Jamie. I don't know if you know.
I don't know. Depends if the reporter has a spine.
No, I'm talking about Joel Embiid.
Embiid pushed the guy, but threatening the guy, maybe you don't get suspended for a threat.
Okay.
Right? You actually act on it, it's one thing. You threaten a guy, that's a different story. Speaking of Mike Rupp, here he is, longtime NHLer from the NHL Network, back on Overdrive. There he is. Mike Rupp. Rupper, you ever get into it with any reporters back in your day that you thought maybe didn't treat you properly, treat you well, or fake news kind of thing, and you felt you had to step up? Any of those stories back in your time?
I don't. Part of me saying unfortunately no, but maybe fortunately no. I don't know which one to go with. I had some where it was. You maybe. It wasn't getting into it, but you always had guys that you'd like to, right? But I always felt like at the end of the day, it's not the juice ain't worth the squeeze in a situation like that. But then also, they've got final right, and they can kind of say whatever they want to do in their outlet and through their outlets. So maybe nowadays it's a little different. You could take social media and push back on those things, but back a little prior social media, it kind of wasn't worth it. Yeah,
that's true, man. You do see Kevin Durant is going at everybody all the time. And he'll just tweet it out.
That's what that guy does. You serious? That guy. That's all he does. That one drives me nuts, to be honest with you.
You're not a fan of that.
Hey, do you remember when Nazem Kadri, Bob McKenzie reported about Kadri's contract?
Yes.
And I think he said false Bobo or Bobo?
Bobo. He tweeted at him false Bobo, and I'm not sure how Bob responded to that.
I don't think Bob really cared.
Yeah, he may not have one way or the other. That's a little bit different, I guess. Because Marchand went through that recently, right? There was a report on Hockey Night, I think, that he was on the verge of signing a deal, and Marchand said in front of the cameras, that's just not accurate. If it were, I would have signed it by now. But anyway, it's great to have you, Mike, and we're obviously buzzing up here in Toronto because the Leafs have a new coach, and I don't think we've spoken to you since the season began, and they're off to a decent start, 7-5-2. Have you seen any impact, positive, negative, that Craig Berube has brought to this team, and What do you make of the Leafs a month into the season?
Yeah, I mean it's not a finished product. I think everybody kind of knows that. But I kind of like what I've seen in some regards because I've seen some different games. Hey, listen, we have had some games that are stinkers, right? They have had some of those, but every time that I've watched them, they seem like they're trying to I don't know, play game situations a little bit differently. They've had a couple really impressive wins, but then they followed up with a couple that were not. I mean, I remember that. I think distinctively that Tampa game. That was the best. That was the best game I've seen that organization play in quite some time. I felt like, and then remember, I think they lost like the next 3 games against Columbus. That was a bad one. Mm-hmm. But then they've had the Winnipeg game. They've had these moments, right? So they're able to keep the puck out of the net. And I think that it's, again, a work in progress. See, I think that division might give them a little more breathing room this year to figure it out. And we'll see come playoff time if anything's changed.
Rupper, do you believe, and I just, you personally, when you have a coach like Craig Berube, a guy who's grizzled, a guy who's played in the league, but he's also, a guy who's known to back it up with the physicality. As a player, do you feel like you've got to prove a little bit something different to him other than maybe a guy who's just a good coach but maybe never had that physicality when he played?
Yeah, I mean, maybe taking on, or maybe the teams take on a little bit of what the coach was as far as a player. But I think even more so what Craig Berube's got, he's got a recent cup. And that's the one to me when you sit there and you look back and you think, well, you think of some of the special parts of that team there, big defense in St. Louis. They had that, what was it there? I always get it messed up. It's either the third or the fourth line that they had that was really good. Yeah, they had a lot of different things. So I think that you look at them and and any coach, you want to be in good terms. But you also got to know what the coach values. If the coach values, I mean, I always go back to it because there's such a structured environment in New Jersey. Lou Lamoriello, from a GM standpoint, I'm in Carolina right now with the Penguins tonight, and I was actually in Carolina, and I was a healthy scratch, and I went up and I watched a game with him. He asked me, he was like, "Michael, you want to come up and watch a game with me in the box?" And of course, I got to say yes when the GM asks you that, and I'm up there. And for an example, like Patty Elias would pull off a great move, would get zero emotion out of Lou. Brian Giunta would gain the red line and dump it in, and he was like, "Hell of a dump in, Brian. That's a way." I'm like thinking to myself, like, this is the guy that signs our checks. Coaches are the ones that make decisions on ice time. If the little things matter to them, then they should probably matter to me a little bit more. So I think it's the same thing with a head coach.
With Mike Rupp, and speaking of which, there's obviously news in Philly today that Matvei Michkov is going to be a healthy scratch, and he was off to a really good start, really, offensively. A depth player and a young kid. He's a rookie. And John Tortorella, basically said this is a part of the process. And based on what I've read of his game today, I think a number of people have seen him kind of slow down, and they're almost surprised it took this long for John to decide to make this decision. What do you make of it, and how would you expect people in Philly to react to it?
Well, I think anybody we've all been around watching the game. You knew this is a matter of time, so it happened. It's part of the molding process, I think, in John Tortorella's world, and I like it. I think as long as behind closed doors, you're working with the player. Player gets a different perspective. Hey, let's watch things from up high, and just know that, of course, this is not going to be a continual thing, and you got to get that confidence level back. So if you can somehow finesse, hey, you're not going to play right now. We need you to see certain things, learn certain things, but also find a way to keep their morale up. It's great. And it's part of molding your player into doing what you want to inside the team concept. So we knew this was going to come. It doesn't matter who and what the player is or was prior to coming to the NHL. That's what Torts does, I guess is the best way to do it. So, and also sometimes I think he wants to see how you react. Let's see what we got between the ears. What kind of drive do we have with a young player to fight through these moments? And I think that's what you're looking at.
Mike, what is the actual value of watching from above? Like I've kind of always been like, does it actually do anything, or is it just to kind of take a breather in reality?
For me, I felt like when you go up top, there's times when you're not feeling it on the ice. You feel rushed. You feel like you don't want the puck necessarily on your stick. I think even star players can feel that, and you might feel like you're on the run out there. You're out there to survive. There's some value in going and just watching from up top, because you realize, oh, if I play with my head up and try to take inventory around me at all times, I got some time. I've got some reads I can make just from knowing that how teams are going to play. Ice level, I mean, fans know this from the standpoint, you go watch a game, if you're up at the glass, what a different game it is than if you're up in section 200s. And I prefer to watch it up there because I think you can see the plays developing. And I was one of them that maybe could see the plays develop but couldn't actually do it on the ice. But, Michkov can. These guys go up there, see what kind of pressure. When you get a guy right on your hip and you feel him on the one hip, watch when these guys go in the corner. Are they coming with another layer? No. Okay, I got one guy now, so I just got to worry about him. So I think there's a lot of value in it, and it just kind of slows things down.
Rupper, we talk about the Eastern Conference a lot, just with us being Toronto-based and talking about the Leafs and stuff. But did we sleep at the start of this season on the impact of the Florida Panthers and them just hitting the ground running again? I mean, it seems like they haven't missed a beat, and they seem like the pace car where everybody was talking, okay, it's going to be the Rangers' turn or it's going to be this team's turn. And all of a sudden, Florida's right there, top-tier team again.
Yeah, I mean, I coming in this year, I kind of felt like the East for me, before the puck was even dropped on the season, the top two teams are probably going to be the Rangers and Panthers. But to your point, Noodles, like the way that the Panthers are doing it and the way they did it from the get-go, and the way they handled business over in Finland, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with Sam Reinhart. I mean, is there one person out there that didn't think there'd be some sort of market correction on him this year? He's incredible what he's doing. And the fact that they're able to do some of this or look this good when they didn't have Barkov for a little bit. I mean, I think you're starting to see mini Barkov and Lundell. He's evolving. Guys are getting better. Like, this is not a team that's just a veteran team that, added pieces 1 year and at the deadline and just got it done. Like, they're growing together. And there's that team concept that's it's rolling right now. And, you got to take this back even prior last year. I mean, it's been an evolution going back to, 3 years ago, the President's Trophy, or 2 years ago. You had the President's Trophy, and then, Paul Maurice comes in here and has really done a great job. So they give themselves a chance to win every single night. They usually don't shoot themselves in the foot. And I find in today's National Hockey League, there's not many teams that do that.
Yep, that's 100% accurate. Enjoy the games tonight, Rupper. We appreciate you doing this. We'll do it again down the road.
Awesome, guys. Anytime. Enjoy.
You got it. Mike Rupp at the NHL Network. Formerly playing for Lou Lamoriello. Lou loves a good dumping.
I was just going to say, that's what I got out of that whole interview, is that Lou's cheering a dump.
Great dumping by Bryan.
I would have assumed he stayed silent the entire game.
Yeah, I would. That would be my impression as well.
Right? Like, you don't hear anything. He doesn't react. He doesn't say anything.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised he'd even want a player up there with him. Like, that's surprising to me that he would want to be associated with players. Like, his whole persona is, I do my thing, you do your thing, and there is no connection. Like, there's no even middle ground where we can meet in the middle. And obviously, he must have thought fondly of Rupp, or maybe he wanted to get a read on what was going on with him in the room, whatever. But that's a really cool story. And, Florida's off to a great start. Sam Reinhart is off to a great start. And Nashville is in Florida tonight after they lost again last night in Washington. And, it was a couple days ago.
About them, Brian.
I think you have to be. I think you have to be. Now you've reached a point where you're so deep into the season where you can't get up off the mat. They scored 2 goals again last night. Like, they just can't get going. And now Barry Trotz is suggesting he's going to somehow start a rebuild, which obviously is ridiculous and impossible, and it can't happen. But I'd be concerned if I was Andrew Brunette. That would be my concern, because there may be a very good chance that ownership steps in and goes, you got to do something. We can't just allow this to just continue to go the way it's gone. And when you hear Trotz speaking up the way he's been speaking up, you see some of the players speaking the way they're speaking, and they keep losing. That's generally trouble for the coach. And yeah, it's pretty deep into the season now, and they do not look like they're molding into this juggernaut offensive team that I think Trotz was hoping he was building.
Yeah, I mean, the 4-8-1. Yeah, you're 13 games in, but you're still trying to figure out like what your team is. But I think you're starting to creep into what you say, Brian. Like creep into, hey, we kind of see what we have here. I'd like to see like Stamkos scored last night. Marchessault for me has kind of been a ghost. Like I don't think he's found a role there. I'd like to see their better players play better. But again, when you're man, Chicago's 5-8-1. Chicago's ahead of you. I think Colorado and Edmonton have the same record, 6-7. I think that they'll get out of. Both teams they'll get out of it. They're just good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at Nashville. I just don't know. I on paper it looked good. It's just not. Something's not right there. The smell test.
Yeah, it doesn't smell good. It doesn't look good. And Edmonton last night. Watching a good majority of that game, I thought it was a really fun, entertaining, fast game, like really, really quality game. But Vegas is doing it again. I mean, they've had up and down regular seasons. There have been seasons in the past where they barely got in. Last year, they barely got in, and they had to play Dallas in the first round, and they end up losing that. But this year, they've got everybody healthy. Mark Stone looks great. Jack Eichel looks outstanding. Like he looks incredible. And I thought Thomas Hertl looked really good last night. And, Hannafin scores couple last night.
Well, can I ask you guys? So we had to do our picks for, who's going to win the Cup and who's going to win the MVP. We do it, every month. I picked Vegas over the Rangers. Who would you pick if you're picking right now?
A Cup final right now?
Yeah, and the winner. So I picked Vegas. I
think that's a sound pick in the West. I still look at Dallas. I picked them before the year. They haven't had, a great start. Mm-hmm. Based on their standings. I like their team. I like the way they're built. I'd go either Dallas or Vegas out west. And, yeah, I would lean – I'd probably go to Florida, man. I don't know. They should probably get the same level of respect that the Chiefs get, that the Dodgers will get next year. Why can't they do that again? Look at the way they started. And they've lost some pieces for sure.
Yeah.
But – man, they just keep rolling, and they got through a Barkov injury like it was nothing.
Yeah.
So I would go Florida in the East.
Yeah, they have their framework. That's the one thing. Talking to players who have played Florida and talking to scouts that have watched Florida play, they've found a template there that works for them. So it's okay, you get into trouble, you're down 2-0 in the game. It's guys, we know what to do. This is how we get into the back end of the game. This is what we need to do. They've found that template, and they played like that the last couple years, not just to win the Cup. They've found a template of how Mo wants them to play. So, you get some plug-and-play guys. They've lost some guys, the Cousins and Lomberg and Montour, but the framework is still there from their big boys. And I think it's I have a tough time sleeping on Florida. I went off the board at the start of the season. I don't know. I think I may have told you guys this. I chose Winnipeg and Tampa. But
that's pretty good.
That's looking really good right now.
Well,
Winnipeg.
Okay, yeah, but me being a hero now, I can say it. But if Winnipeg was 4-9-1, would I be admitting it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Don't say anything.
But the thing is I liked what Tampa. I just think they're rested, and I like the way they're built. I like the goalie. But it just again. Who knows? I think there's teams above them. Florida, that's why I brought it up to Rupper. I'm we're all looking past these teams going, hey, the Rangers and this team and this, the Leafs look good and that. And why the hell are we not looking at Florida again?
They should be.
Really
they are the pace score. I mean, quite literally, they're the pace score in the East. They have more points than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They've represented the East in the Cup final 2 years in a row. And their framework, like you said, and their coach and their superstar goalie, they're all
and
there.
Front office, that's what I like about Vegas and Florida.
Yes,
they take swings.
They absolutely do.
They're not.
That's why Vegas, man. I did a thing 3 or 4 days after the Cup was handed out back in June, and I was asked how would you rank your Cup favorites or whatever next year, and I think I had Vegas at 1. But the reasoning, it wasn't even that their roster was set or anyone's roster was set because it was before July 1st. It was because of that attitude you just talked about.
Yeah.
Like they deserve the benefit of the doubt, the front office there, that they will turn over buildings to get the right piece.
Yep.
And they are so rabid when it comes to having a winning attitude. You just have to accept it and you have to appreciate it.
Well, we did the game in Vegas, was a couple weeks ago. You got Sports Center ran it, and did you see George McPhee in the box?
Yeah.
Going crazy up
great.
there.
It's what, late October, early November. This guy is every goal, every play, he's living on it like it's Game 7.
Like he's Lou.
Kelly McGrimmon, exactly. But Lou is stoic. Like Lou, you can't tell. Like George McPhee looked like he wanted to climb out of the box and get down on the ice and choke the ref out and choke out the penalty kill at that time. Like he just was so engaged. I loved it. Like I love George McPhee. And you look right beside him, Kelly McCrimmon's smiling. Like he's just kind of. But they are the template of how management should. And I'm careful to say this. Should be. You have to almost have no emotion involved when you make decisions.
Yep.
Marc-Andre Fleury, we love you. Sorry, you got to go. Like it's Marcia. So hey, why?
Stamkos, nice to see you. Goodbye.
Like it just, but that's you look at it. I think management, like these managers, fall in love with their players, and it affects their judgment on either contract negotiations or keeping them past their due date. And Vegas doesn't have that. If anything, they're at the other side of the spectrum.
I mean, I thought of this with Florida. Is Florida not saying, what are we going to do if we lose Aaron Ekblad, who is a free agent at the end of the year? Doesn't seem like it. They're just like rolling along.
No, yeah, they're just, and they might work something out. I think they went with Sam Bennett. They already have recently with obviously Reinhart, Verhaeghe, and
Right.
and they're happy to. Reinhart's an example. They won a cup, and they're like, we'll figure this out. If you want to stick around, this is what it is. And he made sure that it was going to work for him. And at times you may look at that and say, well, it's easy for them to do it after they've won to be that emboldened. But the truth is they did all of that prior to them winning. Mm-hmm. Like in Vegas, they've been doing this since day one.
Yeah.
Like after their first year, James Neal was a rock star in Vegas. I was there in Vegas, their inaugural season, and there were Neal jerseys all over the place. T-shirts. We're talking dealers in the casino wearing James Neal hats. And they let him go immediately. After the first year, they went to the Cup final. And they're just like, go sign somewhere else. And he signed, I think it was in Calgary. I think he went up to Calgary after that. And obviously we know what's happened with Fleury and Marchessault and others. And, Tampa, the first guy to really do it was Steve Yzerman with Stamkos when he became a free agent. And that was long before they won Stanley Cups.
Right.
And he said, this is the way we operate. If you got a problem with it, we won't take that personally. Feel free to leave.
Yeah, they basically played chicken. Like he went all the way to that free agent interviewing period. Right?
It was beyond July 1st, I believe, or I guess right before because he signed an 8-year deal.
Yeah,
it was. But here's the thing too, Brian. You say this all the time. You have to have confidence in your program.
Yes.
Like that's what it is. Like if you aren't confident in your program and what you've built or what you believe you're building, then you fold and you go, okay, we can't lose you. What will the market say? What will this say? Like where these other organizations are like, okay, we want you. Here's the offer. If you don't want to stay with the program that we're building or have built, good luck to you. And we'll find a replacement to slug in there. And to me, that's the difference, the fine line between organizations that are begging their players to stay and we need you. Now, some are small market places that you have to draft and develop to keep them there just because of the unique stature of the market. But other markets should be confident and go, you want to be here. Not just we need you here. We want you here, but you have to want to be
Well,
here.
and there's certain core pieces that doesn't apply to either. In other words, if you're in Florida, Barkov's an important piece. Got to keep him. Got to have him. If you're in, Vegas, I guess I'm trying to think of the guys that they've kept over time. Theodore is probably the best example, who's been their number one defenseman basically since the start. And, you look at the NFL, there's turnover all the time. Well, we have to keep Mahomes, and then we can believe in our program. So it also is about targeting the guys that you're willing to apply that logic to and that philosophy to.
Yeah.
In Tampa, it was we have Hedman and we have Vasilevsky. So Stammer, if you want to go, you can go.
Yeah, but
we can live without you, but we can't live without those guys.
How many teams last year would have seen what Reinhart's doing? I think he had 57 goals and be like, whatever you want. we can't afford to lose
Especially after
Reinhart.
winning, because you could also justify we won. We got to give them everything.
Yeah.
And they obviously put an ultimatum in front of them saying, we can live without you.
We
we're
will
cool with
replace you.
keeping you,
Yeah.
but we will also
Right.
we can replace you. And
Well, and like you mentioned, Hurdle. Did anyone see that Hurdle trade coming when it happened?
that was a shocking trade.
It was
deadline
like,
deal.
who even
And he
thought that guy was
injured at the
available?
time. He
Well,
was injured
he
at
wasn't
the time.
available.
Right?
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
hurt.
And Vegas is thinking, you know what? Why don't we bring him in?
Yeah. And didn't they extend him?
No, his
Or
contract.
he had just kicked in the
and
deal.
I think they got San Jose to eat some of his deal. I think he's making
think you're right.
6 and change
It
or
was like
something.
it was like a Kessel deal. almost.
Yes,
Like
it's like-
San Jose was like,
Yeah.
we got to get out from under this.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, and he looks good, man.
He looks good, but you're right. Like, I still think it comes back to where if you know the player, Sam Reinhart, like, why would he want to leave? Like, you look at the tax situation, you look at the structure they've won, and you're around it. Like, sometimes the value of being comfortable and getting paid lots of money, like, there's no doubt he might have been able to get, let's say millions more somewhere else, but it might not have been in a situation where he's comfortable, his family's comfortable, or a chance to win. So you have to factor that in. And there's a lot of these players that are comfortable. William Nylander is comfortable in Toronto. Now, they gave him a boatload of money.
Yeah, they didn't get any
and
discount on it.
there
But
was no discount. But it's still, like, some guys are like, I'm comfortable here. I don't need to see what the grass looks like on the other side of the fence. I'll stay here. Let's find a number and make it work.
well, and the winning thing is what has changed
helps.
in Florida. Like, Florida has been in the league a long time. They were horrendous for like 20 years. There was no state tax in 2012.
The building was empty.
The building was empty. The weather was the
bad.
same.
Yeah.
Like, it was, the program had to be built up for all of a sudden that kind of stuff to matter. The same
Yep.
thing with Tampa. Like, you have to put the players in place. You have to have the right framework. You have the right culture. You got to start winning. And then all of a sudden it becomes, I'll take a little less. Plus, I get this and I get that. All that
Right.
kind of stuff is irrelevant. If you're just a joke of a franchise that goes nowhere, no one wants to be associated with you.
Well,
Not
I can
winners,
think-
anyway. You can get guys who are like, hey, it's my last deal. I'll take anything I can get. Or I'm not a face of a franchise, but they're willing to overpay me, so I'll stay. But if you get guys like top-end talent that think they can win and want to win, they're not. It doesn't matter what your tax bracket is. It doesn't matter what kind of weather system you have. If your franchise isn't capable of winning, people aren't going to listen.
And I think of guys, Kevin Shattenkirk wins a cup in St. Louis, and then he goes, yeah, I'll sign a 3-4 year deal in Anaheim.
Right.
He'll be a veteran guy, live by the beach, and he's going to help that young guys grow. You see some guys, and Ryan Strome went to Anaheim. He got a big deal, and I like him as a player, but it just sometimes there's money there. Alex Killorn, I think, is it Killorn in Anaheim?
Yes,
right?
he is. Yep.
Yeah, Tyler Toffoli in San Jose this year.
Big deal. Guys are going to go to a rebuild situation. But that might be, hey, it might be their tax structure, it might be weather, it might be, rebuild, but you're going to get overpaid to go. Everyone's situation is unique. But we point to Sam Reinhart, like he probably could have got a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but more money somewhere else. But he's got a great situation there. Why would you rock the boat? Like, you just find a number and
Well,
move on.
and Verhaeghe got paid, and the guy who hasn't signed is Ekblad and Bennett. Like, Sam Bennett is the guy that everyone assumes they're going to do everything they can to sign him. I don't see why they
Right.
wouldn't, but it's tough to put a number on that guy because he's your second-line center. He's, he puts up numbers, but not massive points.
Nobody's like what you want in the playoffs.
Well, that's the whole point. Like, that's why I'm sure he's saying, hey, listen, I'm not taking less than what Verhaeghe got.
Yeah.
And yet Verhaeghe's numbers are going to
He's
be
a
better.
40-goal guy, yeah.
Exactly. Yet I'm sure Sam Bennett, like, this is where it gets a little bit complicated with the buy into the culture, buy into this, buy into that. There's still some sort of an internal competition where I would assume he looks at it and believes and should believe he's a more important piece to success.
But that's what Noodles is
Yeah.
talking about, like with front office belief. They're probably thinking, you know what? If he doesn't want to stay for what we want to pay him, we'll replace him.
Yeah, they could.
Like, we're good enough,
Yeah.
we'll find someone else.
Mm-hmm.
You are, but I guess I'm going to contradict what I'm saying, though. He's a unique piece
Sure.
because Sam Bennett's are not available in the league very much. This is a guy, you're right.
I mean,
maybe
he was
he's just-
forever, remember?
Could have had him for like a third-round pick.
The Calgary
I
days?
understand,
Yeah.
but Sam Bennett grew into what he is
Yeah.
now. It took him a long time to arrive.
Totally.
And that's the difference. This is a guy, if you meet him off the ice, he's not, 6'4", 230. He's not the size of, Matthew Nyes or anything. Like he is wiry. He's Dougie Gilmore built. That's what it is. And he plays for keeps. But it always didn't translate sometimes in the regular season when he's playing on a third line in Calgary and they're going, this guy's not scoring, this guy's not doing much. Like, it took him a while to arrive. I think his value is more than maybe what the numbers should suggest based on what he can bring to the table at a critical time.
Yeah,
that's
the whole point.
He's a unique player.
No, exactly. Yeah. So what do you pay for a unique player? That's it. Like, Verhaeghe can say, I had these points, these amount of goals. Right. Reinhart said this. Like, Bennett's not going to be able to supply the same thing.
Well, when you look at his stats, like, what do you think his career high for points is? Now, he's a point a game right now.
55?
49.
Yeah.
So,
not even a 50-point guy.
Right? Career high for goals, 28.
Yeah.
I'd pay that guy $8 million every year, I'll tell you that.
But that's what we're saying. Yeah. Exactly. Like,
how do you quantify? Like, honest to God, he changed the series. He punched Brad Marchand in the face. That changed that series, I'm telling you. Like, and I know a punch shouldn't quantify money, but that guy plays for keeps, and every time he's on the ice, you're right, a 50-point guy probably shouldn't get $7-8 million, but he's not a 50-point guy in the playoffs. He's a difference maker. That's the way I look at it. Is if he can get you 50. What did he get? Just quickly, I don't have the internet in front of me, but what did he get in the playoffs for points last year for the Panthers? Because he scored some really big goals, and he was.
So the last two playoffs, Noodles, he had 15 and 20 2 years ago, 14 and 19 the year before that, or last year.
14 points in 19 games.
Yeah, 7 goals.
Yeah, so he ups his value and production come playoff time when it's most critical and it's more difficult to produce.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe my numbers would be off. We could debate that, but I think he's a hell of a player, and you would have to overpay him to bring him in, and that's where we use the word intangibles, because that's, to me, what's puts him over the top financially on other players.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm using Verhaeghe as an example. Like, Reinhart's extreme because he's on the top line. He scored 50-plus.
Mm-hmm.
But, Verhaeghe is a winger, very good player, but he's a winger that is just going to, point produce, and he plays well defensively. There's a number of things that you like about his game, but Bennett obviously can't supply the same point production, but I guarantee you he's more important to the team's success. So that would be his argument, but it's all intangible related in terms of what's going to get him over the top. Anyway, all right, Mark Mathot will join us. Luke Wilson coming up. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, we've sent Al's brother out somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets, and you have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. These are big tickets, too. Leafs Oilers, November 16th. So this is the fourth and final clue. Jonas, I don't know if you heard the first three clues, but you're about to hear the fourth. My guess will be once you hear this clue, you're going to know where Al's brother is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm willing to put some money down because generally it gets easier as the week goes on. But let's hear from Al's brother, and let's see what he has for the fourth and final clue of the week.
All right, Leaf fans, if you haven't figured out my location just yet, here's your next clue to get you over the top and seal the deal. The Maple Leafs, sadly, have never won the Stanley Cup since leaving this building.
Okay. I wonder where Al's brother could be. So when you hear the cue to call tomorrow, the first caller through with the correct location will win a pair of tickets to see the Leafs take on the Oilers November 16th.
I think he should camp out there until the clue is done.
I agree. He should have to stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He should have to stay there, Al's brother, holding the tickets and waiting peacefully until, someone shows up on Friday.
Who's that magician who sometimes performs in a glass box? You know,
David Blaine?
Yeah. That should be Al's brother.
David Blaine.
Just waiting there.
Yeah. We could set something up. I'm sure we can get insurance on that. Al's brother in a glass house somewhere downtown with a pair of Leaf tickets. So, listen to the cue to call tomorrow. And, again, if you haven't figured out where Al's brother is by now, with that clue, I think you're in trouble.
Well, you know what? And thinking of it, David Blaine levitates, right? He's the guy who, can levitate, like he'll float. Have you ever
Do
seen
you think
him
that's
float?
real though?
Well, I don't know. Do you think
Well,
magic is real?
Obviously,
know.
it's not real. Like whichever way he's doing it, he's not actually capable of doing something that is not humanly possible. I'm pretty
Maybe.
sure. You think he's got those
I don't
type of
know.
powers?
Have you you saw the Harry Houdini videos where he gets out of those things? Do you believe that?
Yeah, well, I mean, they throw him in the water. There's witnesses that have seen him thrown in.
Didn't Houdini die during one of his
I'm
tricks?
pretty
though?
sure
right?
he did. I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah,
I
'cause
think he did.
the whole
so-
thing was he had the key the whole time, and I guess he got in there and he just something
Panicked.
jammed.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
don't know.
his version of Doogie just jammed him up badly and kicked him into the water.
Yeah,
And
not good.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I had always thought the same thing, Noodles, that it didn't go well for Houdini at the end.
I'm pretty sure.
But-
I'm going to Google it now when I get internet. But you guys, I think Houdini died like doing one of his tricks.
Trying to get
one
out.
of those famous magicians did. I can't
Yes.
remember which one it was.
Yeah, because he was always tied up, and he'd be in the water, and he'd come, which would be just incredible to see live, but would be
Yes.
terrifying. You know, and
Yeah.
you'd think anyway. We don't need to continue to get into it. Hour 2 coming up. Mark Mathot will join us. Luke Wilson will join us. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.